Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with today's trading action. All right, now there's a bit to unpack here before we sort of really dive into the charts and what have you. Now, there's a whole range of different things happening. It was remiss of me yesterday not to mention coming into October, earnings month for a lot of firms, and it is very active, obviously, for the equity markets. Now, we're going to see a lot of toing and froing from equities to currencies to interest rates as we get the key US numbers coming out. Oil falls as OPEC cuts oil demand. You've got there's question marks over what's going to happen with or the impact on the yuan with China's fiscal measures they've announced over the weekend. And then you've got this week, we've got key sterling data, right? We've got employment, inflation, retail sales. We've got the ECB. There's a whole range of things happening. And don't forget, underlying everything, this big move in the dollar here, and you can see very clearly, like you'd think the markets fundamentally were just rocking for the dollar, right? Like the dollar is just cruising up against everything. And this, I think it's building up into a massive trading opportunity. And I can't see the dollar sustaining this. You know what, we've had the safe haven impact from the Middle East. We've had obviously Hurricane Milton go through the joint. We've got the US elections coming up. We've got a whole range of things. And what it shows me, this looking at the hourly charts here, the market is not long dollars, right? The market, no one, because it was so telegraphed. If we come back and have a look at the interest rate cutting cycle from the Fed, it's very much mapped out. We've got another interest rate cut coming up. But if I drill into the Fed, like the interest rate cuts, the most aggressive out of all the central banks, ready to cut and ready to keep charging, right? And if you look through the implied rates and the basis points here, you can see basically they are ready to keep cutting. It's not about when are they going to do it or if, it's about by how much. So we're in a situation here. It's a little bit of a strange one because we've got like the dollar just screaming topside. As I said, you only usually see this when the market is short dollars or they're square and the dollar just keeps going up because the market is like wondering what the hell's going on. But it will turn at some stage. We need some numbers to turn. And if you look at the daily charts, now I still think a lot of these long-term trends are coming closer to an end. But look at this euro chart here. We've got the sort of bull bear line there coming right up in here with that support trend line on euro, sort of around 108, sort of 70. That's a big level, right? And you got sterling sort of just coming back down to test that initial, well, back towards support. Aussie back in the range and Kiwi back in the range. Dollar CAD back in the range. You've got dollar yen still edging higher, right? As is dollar Swiss, but there are resistance levels above. And the dollar index just reflecting what's happening in the euro, moving to the top side as well. So we're seeing like a build up of pressure on the hourly charts. It's starting to build up on the daily charts. I can see some action here, but this is the hard part because it's the big earnings month, October. You're going to be keeping a close eye on the equity markets, and the equities today had a really positive day. But what we're seeing in the currency markets is a risk-off sentiment. So there's discombobulation there. Like the US Treasury yields, if anything, long dateds are up. I mean, this is pretty steady, right? So if anything, you probably say right now the yields were probably sideways over the course of the day. Equities up, but currencies, well, the dollar up as well, right? If anything, this is going back to normal markets back in the 90s, where there was not such a big connection between like day in, day out between the equities and the currencies, right? So so what I'm trying to describe to you is we've got a few like strange things happening, right? And the markets are building up into something sort of big. I can just sort of feel it. You get to see these trend lines. And so what you need to be doing is just keeping your finger on the pulse with what's happening, okay? What's coming out fundamentally. Now, do these fundamental data releases, are they going to impact? Well, I tell you what, the easiest impact is if they go with the recent short-term trends, right? If it's with the trend, it's probably a nice, easy trade to the downside. So weaker employment numbers here in the UK, definitely worth looking at. What we need is to get the sterling rallying in this environment. We need really strong numbers, right? And it doesn't look like a lot of these countries, the data is already weak. The central banks are factoring in rate cuts. So it's a sort of a bit of an odd one where the dollar just keeps rallying by default on the back of these numbers. So you got industrial production numbers out of Europe, the ZEW numbers out of Germany. You know, once again, respected numbers. The trend, short-term trend on sterling and the euro is down, right? So look for weak numbers for a trading opportunity. Like if no one's long dollars, these things are just going to keep going down. Now, one of the key releases today also, keep an eye on the Canadian inflation numbers. Now, it's a line ball decision at the moment whether they cut by 50 basis points next week or 25. So this will be one of the key numbers. Once again, the numbers have been weak and they are expecting, slightly weaker numbers year on year, 1.8. Just keep an eye on those ranges to see if we do get any sort of anomalies here. But this is the numbers that we're looking for. It's probably one of the bigger releases as we come in to Wednesday's UK CPI numbers. I'm sort of interested in that as well. So just having a quick look at that, the central bank interest rate probabilities there and focusing on the Bank of Canada and why this is important. Okay, the cut, 51%, 0.25, 48%, 0.5, right? That's sort of flipped over in the last day. So it is a line ball decision whether they go by 50 basis points or 25. Today's inflation numbers will tell us the answer. If it's below 2%, right, then you've got to be thinking that they're going by 50, right? And that could see a little bit more weakness in the Canadian dollar, right? And that sort of collides with, unfortunately for us, with OPEC reducing the demand on oil, right? So oil's fallen. It supports a stronger dollar CAD. So you're working with a few different variables here. We've got the inflation numbers here as well. If we get weaker inflation numbers, well, it should be an easy trade to the top side, but you want to be keeping an eye on what's happening with oil, right? But that's because that's the third cog of the wheel that really upsets things when you're trying to trade dollar CAD. So going forward from here, the real focus is looking at, like, you can see what's happening, right? And it's just a matter of trying to nail the timing here. Is it going to be a US event or something else? I think it's a US dollar. We need some really weak numbers out of the US to get these things rolling. But we've got potential breaks here. Like these things have been moved a long part of the way geopolitically, right? Which means if there's an adjustment in that, these things can all correct very quickly. Okay, and you're looking at a couple of 100 points across the board on euro, sterling, Aussie, Kiwi, dollar CAD. Well, it's a little bit of a funny one, right? But so we're building pressure. Remain patient. Don't jump the gun. Just keep an eye on the markets. As I said, this really big earnings season, October. Equities, are they going to connect with the currencies? We'll have to wait and see, right? But you want to have your global dashboard up to sort of see if there's normality and if the markets are lining up with either a risk on or risk off sentiment. At the moment, we're not seeing that, but we'll see how it goes through the rest of this week. All right, and that's pretty much what we've got. I do have a live session coming up. If I can just get my page here, nailing the timing of the trade. This is probably quite relevant to what's happening in the market just at the moment. So for those traders that do have access, jump online, or you can watch the recording of this trading session afterwards. All right, guys, that's it from me. Have a good one. All the best. Cheerio.